You're watching Bloomberg Law. I'm Lee Pacquiao. My guest today is Rodge Cohen, partner and senior chairman at law firm Sullivan & Cromwell. Rodge, of course, is the preeminent corporate lawyer in the financial institution space, and given the economic turbulence of the last 4 years, he's been very busy. We're happy to have him back on the program. Welcome. Thanks for coming in to see us again.
Great to be with you.
So last week we had former SEC Commissioner Roberta Carmel on the program to discuss an interview she gave with Barron's Magazine. This is going to get a little bit meta, but I want to start off with a quote. The interview for me boiled down to the following, and I'm quoting here. We have to eliminate the problem that comes along with too big to fail, that of socializing losses and privatizing profits. Such a system is antithetical to any notion of the capitalist ideal. Now, assuming too big to fail has not yet been fixed and isn't going to be, what are we left with? Is that system, can it be called capitalism?
Well, I would start off by agreeing with Roberta that too big to fail is an unacceptable policy, and I think there are many reasons, not just the potential antithesis from capitalism. But I actually do believe that we have gone a very, very long way to fixing too big to fail for the largest financial institutions. I guess it depends on what one's definition is, but the way Dodd-Frank works, if a large financial institution has to be resolved, its shareholders are wiped out, its management is gone, and its creditors have to bear all the losses. I don't know what more there can be in terms of failure.
So, looking at this on a cyclical basis, we're not going to see something like 2008 again. Next time the big banks get in trouble, they're going to be completely handled a way that was different than what happened previously? Oh,
I think it will be a very different system. You know, in 2008, we had a string of ad hoc resolutions. There was no break the glass in case of fire plan. Today, through the living will process alone, we will have a mechanism to deal with each bank. Now, it won't be followed exactly as written. In fact, there will be significant deviations. But at least we have a game plan, we have a system, and I cannot imagine within the next 10 years, for example, that there would be anything like 2008 again in terms of how we dealt with trouble in our major financial institutions.
Turning to the broader picture, you've been quoted in the past as saying that the system will look more like what preceded the current environment than many people seem to believe. I'm far from convinced that there is something inherently wrong with the system. That, of course, was back in 2009. Do you still feel that way?
You know, I think that may have been taken a little out of context. The second part of the statement I definitely agree with, that there was not something fundamentally wrong with our financial system and our capitalist system. There was something fundamentally wrong with certain aspects of the regulatory overlay, and that will change. But hopefully we will not see the major financial institutions in this country disappear, because if we do, I think we will also see a loss of ability to influence events, not only financially, but politically throughout the world.
I wanted to get your thoughts on some criticism that's come about the Volcker Rule, specifically the impact that it will have on foreign banks and financial institutions. What to make of these comments that have been made? Is it really going to be as bad as people say, so that banks are going to have to pull up their branches from America and go offshore?
You know, I think the only legitimate answer is that no one really knows. And that's why the philosophy of implementation is so critical here. We're going to have a 2-year conformity period. If during those 2 years the Volcker Rule is applied liberally, then we can deal with market distortions or really huge changes in the structure of our financial system. If it is applied very strictly during that 2-year period, then we may have far less ability to deal with those issues. So for anyone to say, I know it either will have a major effect or it won't have a major effect, it's all too new, too different. The real answer is to have flexibility and liberality during that conformity period, and then we'll know, and then we can adjust.
Viewed from 35,000 feet, some of the provisions in the Volcker Rule, as they apply to foreign banks and financial institutions, it definitely seems to make life much harder for them doing business here. What's at play there? When we're observing these policies coming into final form, is this about protecting American banks from foreign competition?
You know, I don't really think that was the objective. Certainly, when you listen to former Chairman Volcker and Senators Merkley and Levin, the objective was to protect against risk to our financial system. In the process, it seems that the extraterritorial reach of the Volcker Rule was overextended, but there are some substantial fixes which the various agencies could engage in to minimize the impact on foreign institutions. But again, if applied very, very broadly, there could be the major impact on non-U.S. institutions, which you mentioned. When last we spoke, you thought that we might be coming up on a wave of consolidation when we get on the other side of finalizing the rules and regulations in Dodd-Frank. Do you still think we're coming up to that? I think we're still coming up to it. The time period seems to become increasingly elongated. Right. And the Federal Reserve, in two very recent orders, has certainly indicated that it will not be supportive of large transactions, but large acquisitions by the very largest institutions. But there is still so much consolidation which could go on in this country in the financial system, and as returns on equity are compressed by the new regulatory system, consolidation will be even more compelling. This might be a tough question to ask, but what are banks going to look like in America 5 years from now? Now I will go back to the question you asked earlier. I think over time banks will be able to adjust to the new system. You won't have the same pricing. You won't have exactly the same product and service mix. But I still think you will see perhaps now not just 4 or 5 large banks, but maybe 10 large banks. But you will also see thousands of small banks will remain, and there will be a middle group of medium-sized banks as well. I'm just struck when talking to you, you've seen so many cycles in your years at Sullivan Cromwell. I always wonder, what has the impact been for lawyers in your space over the last 3 years? How has life changed, and how do you see things differently now? Great question. Certainly, the world has begun to move, in fact, moves far faster than it ever did before. So a lot of decisions have to be made very quickly. There's not as much time to think about it. That's one major change. A second major change is just the extraordinary outpouring of new regulations. It's not just Dodd-Frank. If you take a look, for example, at the examination manual recently put out by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to try and figure out where the CFPB is actually going in regulating the consumer activities. The new director has certainly laid out certain positions. That's another area which we didn't have to think about a lot just a couple of years ago. So consumer protection is going to be a key issue over the next period of time. So Washington, D.C. is the new center of the universe? It's the center of the universe. I think it's probably always been that way. All right. Well, Rodge, thank you so much for coming in. Great to be here with you. That's Rodge Cohen, partner and senior chairman at the law firm Sullivan & Cromwell. If you'd like to learn more about the cases and issues we just discussed, be sure to check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. I'm Lee Pacquiao. Thanks for watching.